All right. So today we're going to talk a little bit about cancer cells and what are the primary features of cancer cells. What makes a cell cancerous compared to a normal healthy cell? And there are, a lot of defining characteristics, but I really want to just focus on one for this class. And even more so, I want to emphasize the cause and the molecular transformation that occurs, the actual process inside the cell that's going to cause it to become a cancer cell. So let's begin. Oh, actually, so I'm on this slide here. What causes cancer? First, before we get into what is going on at this cellular molecular level that turns a normal cell into a cancerous one, let's define what exactly this cell is and what kind of behaviors does it exhibit. Okay, so we can define cancer as unregulated, uncontrolled cell growth and proliferation. Proliferation meaning rapid cell division. Cancer cells reproduce, they divide like gangbusters. They just make more and more and more and more without any breaks. They just keep stepping on the gas, okay? And of course, as a result of this, you start to see a mass that we call a tumor. And if you have a, this collection of cells that requires nutrients and blood flow and all the things that cells need, of course, that's going to start to starve the healthy tissues, the organ that it's located in, and disrupt the normal organ's function. And if it metastasizes and, a cell, one of the cancer cells, migrates to another location in the body and forms a tumor there, you start to get multi-organ failure, and that's when it can kill you. So that would be a very advanced, like a stage 4 type situation. Now, what is causing at the molecular level, what is going to cause this transformation from a normal healthy cell that is, has its regulated, controlled cell cycle, and it's not dividing like crazy? What causes it to start to acquire this characteristic, among others? And really the primary mechanism at play is DNA mutations. DNA mutations that are caused by a variety of cellular insults, external factors, as well as DNA replication errors in replication, but mutations being a change in the original DNA sequence. So again, two things can cause that. External environmental factors, which we'll talk about a few common examples. as well as so-called spontaneous mutations that occur as a result of just naturally occurring errors in DNA replication that can accumulate in dividing cells. As we know, before the cell can divide, it has to replicate all of its DNA. And so errors can start to accumulate over time. Let's define that as the cause. And, I'm slightly hesitant because, as you probably know by now, and I've probably mentioned this at some point in class, that the textbook cause is somewhat different than my own views, and they're strict, they're based on one of my professors from undergrad. He has a very unconventional sort of view on how cancer cells arise, and I think it's wildly fascinating. But I think it's very important that we understand what, the majority of cancer biologists are focusing on as the cause. And this is simply mutations in DNA, or DNA damage. So we can say DNA damage / the occurrence of mutations, which again are just simply changes in DNA sequence. And so this will make perfect sense because I'm sure you're all aware that smoking certainly increases your chance of developing lung cancer. Being out in the sun, unprotected, exposed to ultraviolet radiation, skin cancer, right? So all of these types of stressors cause mutations and damage to DNA and the structure of DNA, which can lead to mutations. And so we'll just talk about the most common examples that can lead to DNA damage or mutations. There's really 3 primary examples. The first is hereditary, something you're born with. A cancer-causing gene that you have from birth, or well, we'll just talk about that instance. The hereditary, you're born with it. One of the classic examples is BRCA1, having a BRCA1 mutation that you're born with. So we would call this just the inheritance of a so-called oncogene. Of an oncogene, cancer-causing gene. And again, the most classic example, probably made famous because of Angelina Jolie and the double mastectomy that she had, BRCA1, BRCA1, which actually codes for a DNA repair enzyme. So that actually, that makes plenty of sense. If you don't have a functional repair enzyme, the mutations can accumulate much faster, leading to the cancer cell forming. All right, second one, carcinogenic agents, carcinogens, which are simply chemical compounds that can cause mutations. And really one of the classic examples is tobacco smoke. So example, oh boy, ran out of room a little bit here, sorry. Tobacco smoke. Certainly, well, it certainly contains carcinogens. But honestly, it feels like carcinogens are everywhere these days. Luckily, we have repair mechanisms in the cell, which I have another video on, to correct these mutations and fix them. And last would be ultraviolet radiation, or ionizing radiation, but really UV radiation is something we're all exposed to a lot, especially where I'm at in Colorado, this very high altitude sun exposure, a lot of sun. So radiation exposure would be our last. And it's not limited to UV. X-rays are another good example, which is why you wear the lead vest at the dentist. So radiation exposure. And, I'm working with this small whiteboard eraser. There it is. So I'm actually just gonna erase this so I can fit in some examples. But ultraviolet from the sun, so UV radiation. X-rays are another good example. High energy radiation can certainly induce DNA damage and mutations. All right. That's all I want you to know about cancer. And, if you're interested in diving a bit deeper, just, you know where to find me. Send me an email or D2L message, etc. All right.